Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Arwynne O'Neill, and today I'm here again with my mother, Shannon O'Neill. And today we're going to be talking about a question she had asked me a couple of weeks ago about Saturn transiting her North Node, which happens to be in Pisces in the 10th house. And just for a bit of background, as we discussed in the previous podcast, which you can listen to, it's called the Libra Stellium episode, and that was where we talked about how she went back to school and has been studying for her PhD. Welcome, first of all, before we jump in.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So, outline your question for our audience. How did you frame this to me? What did you want to know about this transit?
Well, being aware of the North Node in Pisces in my 10th house, and I just saw somewhere that Saturn was transiting it. And so I immediately started thinking, well, what does that mean for me? And I'm working with my PhD and trying to decide what I'm going to do with it and how is that reflecting. I was feeling a little stuck. And so I was contemplating if that was an illustration of that being stuck, since Pisces is not all that comfortable a space for me to think about.
Right. So that's interesting. Let's talk a bit about what the North Node in Pisces means. And also for you, this is interesting because just like with my North Node in Capricorn, I have nothing else in Capricorn. And it's a weird one for me. I think Capricorn, what is that even? Right. And for you, that's Pisces is the same way.
Yeah, definitely.
So just a little overview for our listeners about the North Node in Pisces. And this is from medium.com. This is an article about the North Node in Pisces and what it means through each house. So I'll just give a little overview, and then we can talk about what it means for you. The North Node represents a point in the natal chart that signifies your soul's evolutionary path and the lessons you're meant to learn in this lifetime. And the North Node is always directly opposite the South Node. So if you have it at, say, 5 degrees Pisces, your South Node would be at 5 degrees Virgo. So while the South Node represents your past karmic patterns and tendencies, and this could be childhood, this could be past life, this could be the atoms that make your make up all of your cells that once were stars, blah, blah, blah. The North Node indicates the direction that your soul should move towards in order for personal growth and fulfillment. So it's not a comfortable placement, and it's not meant to be. It's meant to be something that you've not ever explored before and that you are supposed to be moving towards in your life in order to reach your full potential. So when it's in Pisces, this article goes on to say it suggests that the themes of Pisces are emphasized in your life's journey and in the areas where you need to focus your energy. So spiritual evolution, which is a Pisces thing, deep spirituality, connections with the unseen realms. The soul's journey involves a profound spiritual evolution, and then you're meant to explore and embrace the mystical and spiritual aspects of life, developing your intuition, connecting with your inner self, and seeking a deeper spiritual connection. Compassion and empathy. So Pisces is associated with empathy, and your journey involves opening your heart to the suffering and struggling of others. You're meant to develop a sense of compassion and a desire to help those in need, and learning to offer unconditional love and support to others without judging is central to your growth as a person. Mm-hmm. Creative expression. So Pisces is creative and artistic. So this path may involve exploring and nurturing creative talents, whether in art, music, dance, writing, any other form of artistic expression, which obviously has been a great part of your path in life.
Right.
And embracing your imagination and using it to convey deeper emotions, spiritual insights. And it is in your 10th house, which we'll get into more in, later. It's in the Capricorn house, which is a very strange position for Pisces, I think, because traditionally, there's been a divide between state and spirit, finding a way to bring spirituality into the 10th house and making that a goal in a business sort of sense of making your personal brand and your way of dealing with the outside world and the way that you influence others having to do with spirituality and creativity, I think would be a big challenge. For me, it's hard enough to embrace the North Node in Capricorn, which is all about being the provider and bringing your career to fruition and being independent and business-like, but having that to do with spirituality, I think would be a bigger challenge in a way. Yeah. And the last element of Pisces is about healing and wholeness and, seeking to heal others while healing yourself and all of that stuff. There's more to Pisces, but we can I'll just go over the little keywords here: sensitivity, intuition, surrendering and letting go, the connection to the collective, and embracing your dreams and compassion and service.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the difference between having had a ballet career and now using not using, but becoming aware of dance instead as a vehicle for my aesthetic activism for environmental healing.
Yeah.
And presenting myself as such.
Yeah.
As this creative person using dance as a vehicle to work with for environmental justice and healing.
Yeah.
And that, which strikes me as just terribly Piscean.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
but
healing the world through dance. I mean, come on. Yeah.
But it's that coming out as that rather than hiding the spiritual side of it in the closet, which is what I've always done before.
Right.
And where I used to even joke, well, they burnt witches, didn't they?
You did say that a lot. Yeah.
And that was my reason for keeping that all, hidden.
Yeah.
And just coming out on the more analytical.
Yeah.
Or even Gemini side of it.
Yeah. The gathering information. And that's also a very Virgo, the Virgo South Node is relaxing back into, I'm just a student. I'm just collecting information.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to share this. I don't know enough to, and I resonate with that being, a Virgo with all these planets in Virgo, not my North Node, but Sun, Moon, and Mercury. I connect very much with I'm just a research astrologer.
Yeah.
Or,
I can do a literature review on that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't ask me to consult. Don't ask me to predict your future. I'm just collecting the information for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the PhD is just like a mass of that, and especially on a self-guided program like I'm doing. So it's just, there's an incredible amount of research, and I can definitely get lost in the many rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Just go, I could just do literature reviews forever.
Right.
But it also wouldn't be satisfying, and I wouldn't be making the connections that I know are essential.
Right. And with the North Node in their 10th house, it's all about bringing it out into the public. Yeah. And using it to, as you say, heal the world.
Yeah. No small goal.
No, exactly. And as a Sagittarian, of course, that also, no small goals. That could be
That's
a T-shirt.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, right. You can bring that up at your next PhD cohort meeting.
Right.
So what happens when Saturn conjuncts your North Node? And this is not specific to Pisces, but this is another article from advancedastrology.com. And they talk about what happens when Saturn goes over your North Node, generally speaking, in a transit. So wherever Saturn appears in your chart, it brings limitations and delays. Conjunct the North Node is an excellent time, it says, to reevaluate your life's priorities and think about where you're going and if it's in the right direction. Even though in this period you experience blockages in seeing your purpose clearly, this doesn't mean that you can't see them at all. It's just that you have to look harder. And it says this is a longer transit. Saturn stays in the same sign for approximately 2.5 years, and it's just entered Pisces, but it relatively often goes retrograde. You're shaking your head. No. During this time, it can come into contact with your North Node multiple times. So it may, transit retrograde over it a couple times. I'm not sure this time. I haven't looked, but it's, very likely. Saturn conjunct the North Node is a transit that has lessons that should be learned for several months. And during the average human lifetime, it will occur 2 to 3 times. In this period of life, it says you often have to face challenges and overcome them. This type of limitation is colored by the sign and aspects of your natal Saturn and North Node. Often Saturn conjunct the North Node transit sheds light on your unconscious fears. And these fears are deeply embedded because they show a karmic origin. So during this transit, you may be offered opportunities to get rid of your limitations. Once you clear this phase, you can live up to your full potential. So you can think of this transit, it says, as a deep cleanse for the soul. The energies of Saturn and the North Node completely merge. And it's not uncommon to feel depressed and down and afraid because it feels like the Saturnian fog is everywhere, instilling fear and seriousness. Sometimes you're put into a new setting with no predefined structures, which is 100% what I think you've been going through in this new PhD program.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because this weekend, you had asked me this I think maybe about a month ago. Mm-hmm. And this was, you started your PhD program in the fall. It's now October. You've gone to a couple of conferences with your cohort. And so it's all remote. It's all, you're doing this all sort of by yourself in your room. Obviously, a lot of people went through that during COVID, but this is a 100% remote program. But they do get together kind of quarterly intervals, it seems like. Yeah. And you've traveled for those. This time, just coincidentally, it happened to be in Vancouver where I live. So we've had this wonderful visit, and you literally were staying literally across the street at the hotel, which is awesome. And I got to meet a bunch of your cohort again, who I met in the summer. And it seems like every time you get together with them, there's this new infusion of energy and purpose and meaning, which is very important, obviously, to anyone who's studying something long-term like this, but especially for you, because what you are trying to do is form connections and do this sort of grandiose Pisces 10th house thing,
right?
Which is definitely not a solitary pursuit. It's
it needs feedback and relationships both.
Yeah.
In this conference was a real example too to me of, because it was leaders, an international leadership conference. So, and people from so many walks of life, and found myself facing that certain insecurity of, well, I'm coming here as an outlier, as a dancer, and into all these people who are higher education, nonprofits, world-shaking groups,
right?
And here's little old me, the dancer, and that's the feeling. And then, but being recognized and acknowledged by those people as a valid being, more than just as a creative novelty,
right?
But being a person of validity and substance is incredibly empowering. And having that recognition, acknowledge the spiritual side of it. That, actually went to one of the workshops that included looking at religion and spirituality and philosophy as aspects of leadership.
Yeah.
And kept thinking, am I in the right room? But the overall feel was, I am.
Right.
And, and I met people in that room that I wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yeah.
That are forces of nature in the world.
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay, there is a place for me at this table.
Right.
But that, that feeling will wax and wane too, I realize.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's probably something that everyone goes through in, a PhD program, where they've reached, a certain level of attainment, and now they're almost starting into a new class of going, you've graduated from middle school and now you're going into high school. It's, oh no, like I was a big fish in small pond, and now that's just a continual thing, I would think.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you say about the spirituality and leadership, though, because obviously that is a very, Pisces in the 10th house thing as well. I'm thinking that, like, we are in a very secular culture, like just in North America specifically. And when you're talking about world leadership, of course, that would have to include spirituality and religion, because, right now, if you're listening to this later on, we're in October of 2023. Israel is blowing up, and as frequently has happened throughout history, so many of these conflicts that happen are based around religion,
have faith,
and have that at the core. It's not always just about resources, although sometimes it's a thin veil for resources.
Yeah, they're very tied together.
Yeah, so not acknowledging that spiritual aspect would be, unrealistic. Like that, in order to be a world leader or to pursue a peace program or any kind of thing where you're going in and trying to influence people without acknowledging spirituality, it would not be successful, I would think.
Well, yeah, and it's acknowledging, let's say, faith,
right,
as a part of the culture. Yeah, and which historically, North America has tried to separate faith from culture, and and that's one of the things that as I study dance as part of cultures. Around the world, it's also tied to faith, because there is a spiritual aspect about dance and its relationship with culture.
Right. It's a form of communion.
It's a unifying quality. Yeah. And and the fact that it has been purposely attempted to be eradicated from North American culture. Specifically, I'm just speaking, United States and Canada. Yeah. With that particular Eurocentric colonizing effect of trying to separate that, so trying to get past that to be part of a global stage is a big leap, and to be at a conference in North America where that's seen as something that we have to deal with. Yeah. And be accepted for looking at faith, acknowledging that that's part of it, and that the arts are part of that. Right. Is a big step.
Interesting. So we were just looking at the when Saturn is going to be in Pisces, just to see how soon you'll be out from under this transit. And it is actually from March 2023 to February 2026, which encompasses your entire PhD program.
Yeah.
When I looked that up, the little first paragraph that comes up is Saturn in Pisces will feel very different. Saturn dislikes being in Pisces as this water sign is too fluid and empathic for the master teacher to swim in. Saturn is serious and wants to create and doesn't want to mess around. It also says, back to this medium.com article, that Saturn transiting the 10th house highlights the importance of discipline and responsibility in your career, your public image, and your professional achievements. And you may need to establish a solid reputation and take on greater responsibilities in your career and work diligently towards your long-term goals and aspirations during this transit.
You say that and I immediately see myself thinking, oh, I need to put on a suit. But that's what I don't want to do because I'm trying to embody the Piscean element, like showing up at my conference in the bright blues and corals and seafoamy colors that are what That's
your personal brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you own a business suit. I've never seen you in a business suit.
No, I had one back in the
80s.
80s.
Yeah, you did work at a couple of offices.
Yeah, I had that corduroy suit jacket thing and a skirt.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, that was so not me. I was miserable.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and now, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know my mother, there is some forest green hair. There is a lot of teal and forest green and turquoise and blue and lacy sort of steampunk kind of jackets and flowing shirts with batwing sleeves and it's a very artistic, very sort of Piscean, but through the lens of Sagittarius. Multicultural kind of
and
color, a lot of prints.
Determinedly going, this is who I am. I need to express this.
Yeah.
And I should be able to take this into any arena. I don't have to put on a suit to do it.
Well, no, and exactly. Over the last, I think, at least 10 years, I remember when you were working in vet hospitals and increasingly doing these interviews, you were like, everyone has tattoos. This used to be like a deal breaker if someone comes in a neck tattoo, and now it's just like, oh, that's a lovely neck tattoo you've got. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that took me a while to adjust to.
Right? Yeah, and now you're the one with the forest green hair and
no tattoos.
No tattoos yet. There's always time.
Maybe when I graduate.
Yeah, commemorative. So let's talk a bit more about the South Node versus North Node polarity. So with the North Node in Pisces, your South Node is in 4th house, which is the house of the home. So you're doing all this work at home. Mm-hmm. Your homework is, every day you're doing this work. And you had expressed, a month ago when you asked me this question that you felt like you were hiding away in the library, which is a very sort of Virgo in the 4th house sort of image.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curled up on the couch surrounded by my books. And
your books, your
computer
laptop.
on my lap. Yeah. And, headphones on and imagining myself in a Beauty and the Beast library.
Yes.
In my head.
Exactly.
but that's
dancing.
That's my day-to-day reality. And then quarterly, there are these conferences or residencies to go to and seemingly suddenly come out of the library and try and take on the more effusive persona, not necessarily effusive, but it is effusive because it's, Sagittarius expression of the North Node in Pisces.
Right.
And this last conference over this last week has been the first real example of getting to do that in a full-bodied sort of way.
Right.
I think I feel better about it after this week than when I brought up the question.
Well, exactly.
Because I was feeling like I sit in my living room, with my books and my computer, and am I going to make any impact on the world this way, or am I just doing another hide in the library thing?
Right.
So this week was a good time doing this podcast because it gave me an example of what it's like to interact with my colleagues in a professional sense, feeling like myself, feeling more authentic. I never thought of Pisces as exuberant, and that's just my own bias, But kind of accepting that this is how Sagittarius expresses its its North Node in Pisces.
Yeah.
With a level of kind of flowing exuberance.
Yeah.
It's not quite so charging in.
Yeah.
But kind of gracefully flowing in and making an entrance.
100%.
So it's been a good experience to feel the polarity between the North and the South Node. And I think I feel better able to handle it now, actually.
Yeah.
After this conference.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really great to hear.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the future. Transit ends in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Your PhD program is, I think,
it's 3 to
4.
3 to 4 or 7. I met somebody last night that it was like they were finishing up their dissertation, and it's been almost 10 years.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm saying no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm full speed,
Yeah.
and I'm ahead of the game in that sense. That,
Yeah.
I'm sort of plowing through it.
So what happens at the end of that time? I mean, obviously these goals are probably shifting constantly, and you'll be finding out more as you learn and you develop your skills and.
Well, that's kind of been one of the questions that I've had, and
Yeah.
coming to this conference and aligning myself originally with arts and leadership as a community network. And then I sort of stumbled, which I assumed I would have a place at that table.
Yeah.
What surprised me, and seems very fitting now, looking back on it, is that I sort of stumbled into a networking group of leadership for peace.
Yeah.
They were so welcoming, and I ended up creating some wonderful relationships in a very short period of time with these people.
Yeah.
And people seeing my dance, my work of bringing dance and looking at environmental healing as part of their peace agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so Pisces.
Yeah, in the 10th house for sure.
Yeah.
And leadership.
And the idea of peace and spirituality and all of that is just sort of like, oh, this is very interesting how this is turning. This is not the group that I anticipated that I would feel like I could be impactful in.
Right, because I think originally you had thought about this maybe leading to being a professor somewhere or an instructor.
I assumed
right.
That I would just go into higher education and end up teaching and writing.
Right, which is the Virgo South Node being comfortable.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable in a higher education position. Sure.
Right.
But instead to be sort of drawn into this group where these people are very active.
Yeah.
In an activism.
Yeah.
An activist role, and that's much more out there.
Yeah.
And being involved, and so there was that initial sort of like, oh, really?
Right.
Can I just go back into my library?
Right.
But I can, there's also an appeal to that of actually being able to make an impact.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how that will continue to evolve.
Absolutely.
Because at this point I don't know how it's going to evolve, and the people I contacted are on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
So how do we maintain those relationships and continue to grow in those relationships?
Right.
But this is a global network. So, if there's benefits of technology of being able to maintain these relationships long distance, that we couldn't have done 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So these things are possible now.
Yeah.
That you can actually maintain a genuine relationship.
Yeah.
Is very hopeful.
Definitely. Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been a good experience, and it's kind of helped answer the question and provide more metaphors, but also just more very, very clear realization of what it means to bounce back and forth between the feeling of comfort in the 4th house and the Virgo South Node, and knowing that I want to express it in that 10th house way.
Yeah.
Be good to see what happens in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. And just a note for our listeners, since this is like just one place where you may have your North and South Node, if you have your North Node in Pisces and it's expressing itself in a different way, please let us know. Go to Starzology.com. You can hit the little microphone in the bottom right corner to record a message for us, or send an email and let us know how this is working in your chart. Or if you have questions about your North Node and you've got a transit happening, or even just what is my North Node in X? What does that mean? How might this work for me? We would love to hear from you.
And it was wonderful being here with you again.
Yay.
And always enjoy having these chats.
Absolutely. We'll do this again for sure. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me here.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there, or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.